what made you decide to go into photography and photojournalism in general?
Well, when I was in high school, my brother was 2 years older than me, and he was the sports editor of the high school yearbook. And he would come home after football games, basketball games, whatever. A few days after those games, he would be writing stories, editing, and he would also be editing the pictures. And he would have black and white contact sheets back in the 35mm film days. And he'd be choosing the pictures, and I asked him once, I said, who shoots the pictures? And he said, the photographers, the students who are photographers. And I said, so they get to go to the games and shoot the games and they get to go for free? And he said, that's right. And I thought, that sounds like a pretty good deal to me. And so I got involved in photography when I got in high school and got started on the yearbook. And then in college, I went to Iowa State University and worked on the yearbook there and the newspaper there, and got more interested in photojournalism. And that was really what got me started. I like to shoot sports. I still do that. About 80 to 90% of what I do these days is sports. And that's really what got me interested in photography initially.
So what was your first job as a photojournalist outside of education?
Outside of school?
Outside of school, yes.
I started with the Jackson Sun newspaper in Jackson, Tennessee when I got out of school. And I was a staff photographer there. We had a circulation, I'm trying to remember, of probably about 30,000 daily circulation. And I was on a photo staff of 4, which is pretty big for a paper that size, but that was common 35 years ago, when staffs were bigger. There was more money in journalism than there is now. And that was my first full-time job. After that, after 3 years there, I got on with the Associated Press here in Nashville. And I've been with the AP in Tennessee, based in Tennessee, ever since.
How was the transition from going from print to working for the AP?
Well, essentially, it's the same thing. The Associated Press, our clients are newspapers, for the most part when I started with the Associated Press. So I was really doing pretty much the same job, just on a different scale, when I went from the Jackson Sun to the Associated Press. Still covering sports, news, features, still shooting them in much the same way, a little bit different, because with the Associated Press you have a much larger audience than you do with one single publication. So as far as shooting goes, it's essentially the same thing. You just have got to understand that when I was, for instance, with the Jackson Sun, my main audience were the people within our subscription area. Now with the Associated Press, if I'm covering, let's say, a football game or a basketball game or a hockey game, whatever, I have to be concerned with both teams. I can't just focus, so to speak, on one team, like the single publication can, where they usually have a circulation and a readership that is much more targeted than with the Associated Press, because the pictures I shoot move across the state or across the nation or around the world.
As far as hours go and days working, how is your day-to-day working for the National AP? Is it very busy and all of a sudden nothing happens and all of a sudden something?
Yeah, when you work for AP, there's really not what you would consider a typical day. You've got to be flexible. You've got to understand that anytime, day or night, the phone rings, you're always on call, and you have to make it work. You have to get to where you need to be. Now, if something goes on in Memphis, say, Knoxville or Chattanooga, because Tennessee is my primary area of responsibility. After that, we travel outside, your state borders or your national borders as need be. But when something goes on there, and I obviously, if it's spot news, for instance, and I can't get to Knoxville or Memphis within 3 hours, I've got to pick up the phone and call somebody, either the newspaper there or hire a freelancer up there. but I've got to be flexible because with sports schedules, I work a lot of weekends, I work a lot of nights. There is no regular 40-hour work week. There is no, it's very, very seldom that I work a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 shift. It just doesn't happen.
Has there been one story you've had to go and cover that has really impacted you, maybe emotionally?
Yeah, there's quite a few things that you know are well unpleasant to have to witness. Things like Hurricane Katrina, the Oklahoma City terrorist bombing, storm aftermaths, tornadoes, anything like that. It can be tough to shoot, to cover, because you're there to witness for those who can't be there. And that means a lot of time looking people in the eye, their situation in the eye that is you know, not very pleasant. People, it's not something that you want to get up and go do. A good illustration of this is, for instance, when I went down to Mississippi when Hurricane Katrina hit. We had a lot of people there in New Orleans. There's several people already there in New Orleans, but it hit so far upland, and we needed more people farther inland. So I got sent to Mississippi, and as I drove down the interstate heading towards Mississippi and towards the Gulf, heading south, I was the only car. For miles and miles and miles, there was nobody else. But in the opposite direction, coming north, out of Mississippi, out of that area, the interstates were packed bumper to bumper to bumper to bumper. At night, all you could see are just headlights as far as you could see, but I'm by myself going the other way. So you just, but once you get there, and of course, and you photograph people, talk to them about what they've been through. These are oftentimes people who have lost loved ones, who have lost everything they have. And yeah, it definitely leaves a mark on you.
Do you find, at least working in Nashville, that people respond well to you showing up and photographing disasters like the flood?
Yeah, they really do. And you know, it's not just Nashville, it's wherever you go. It's pretty amazing, really. It always is to me when I go into a location where a disaster has taken place, where people have lost homes because of a flood, a tornado, or a hurricane. The strength of the human spirit and the natural tendency for human nature to swing to the good side, to the positive. People are always, I've found, they've always been willing to share their story. It just takes a little bit of common courtesy. You don't go barging in, stomping in, trespassing, for lack of a better term, on their property, on their emotion, on their situation. You introduce yourself, you tell them why you're there, you express your sorrow for what they've been through, you ask permission when necessary to be someplace, and you talk to them and you tell them you're just there because a lot of people are interested, and they also have an emotional connection to what's gone on. And I've never had anybody, in all those times, I've never had anybody who was nasty in return. They've been upset, obviously, because of the situation, but they've never targeted that at me. Maybe I might be unique in that, I don't know. Other people might have a different tale to tell. But for the most part, I really don't have any memories where people got upset. Some people have asked, they said, no, I'd rather not. And then that's fine. And you move on. You have to take that you know, for face value for what it is. You have to let them be the judge of the situation. You can't come in and tell people. You've got to come in and you've got to ask people. And for the most part, people have been very understanding of why I'm there, what it is I want to do, and they've been very willing to let me document their situation.
Do you find anything unique super special about Nashville in general, just with photojournalism, or something to cover that you really like?
Well, as far as the media in Nashville, Nashville is a relatively small market. So if you're going to work in Nashville, you've got to get along, because you're going to see many of the same people day after day at stories, at events. So you've got to be willing to get along. It's not uncommon at all for photographers, when we're in a situation where it's physically a tight area, as a lot of times we are in. The best picture many times comes from one angle, one position, and if one person's there, when they're done, they will step aside and let the other person in, or they'll stand up and the other person will get lower so we can both shoot at the same time. That's not always true in other places. It just doesn't happen in larger markets. It's not to say we're not competitive, but we're cooperative in addition to being competitive. And we realize that, you know, if I sort of try and elbow other people aside and bully other people away and get try and get the best location for the best photograph, the next day the other person might be in that position and I want to get there. And so if we don't have a give and take and a cooperation, it's just not going to work. It's not going to be any fun. And this job is fun, and it's you know, the same holds true with not just still photographers, but television photographers, reporters. We all understand we're all there to get the same job done, but you don't really want to compete by being rude to people and pushing and shoving, and no matter what you see in movies or on television, the way photographers are portrayed, in Nashville that very seldom happens. Sometimes we bump into each other after a football game or a basketball game when you're trying to get the key player getting out the field, but it's unintentional. We don't mean to do that. But the Nashville market is a good one to work in. People are friendly, we get along, for the most part we know each other, and we respect what each other does. And so when you do that, everybody gets what they need, and in the long run, it's the viewer, the reader, the listener who benefits, because no matter which outlet they look at, they will get the story, and that is why we're there.
Obviously, photojournalism has really developed differently from going from just making your own prints to digital. Can you explain how you've dealt with
Yeah, I've been with AP for 31 years, and I was with the Jackson Sun for 3 years before that. So when I started, we were still shooting black and white film, and either color slide, transparency film, or color negative film. And that means when you go to a different location from Nashville, you know, where I didn't have a darkroom to come back to and process that means I had to either take a darkroom with me, which means chemicals and a larger processing equipment and a transmitter, or later on when we went to just a film scanner, I'd have to go find a 1-hour photo, to these days when all of that equipment basically boils down to your laptop. So it's been a huge change, and in the time I've been a photographer, a working photographer, I've gotten to see that transition, and I think I'm a better photographer for it. I would have hated to have missed out on that part, because in the past, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're going to move a color picture on the Associated Press wire. Well, you shot the picture, you had to go find either a motel room or some sort of an office area or an empty room in a building or what have you. Sometimes someone's home who's willing to let you come in and set up a darkroom. But you had to mix up the chemistry. Usually we had it mixed up before you took off if you were able to. But you had to mix chemistry, get it to the proper temperature, process the film, dry the film, set up a darkroom, set up print trays. And that also means sealing off a room so it's light tight. So we always carried black gardening plastic with us and black tape, so you could very quickly make a darkroom wherever you were. And then make the print. You had to have a typewriter with you, manual typewriter, because you couldn't count on having electricity if you went into a storm. Type out a caption, paste it to the paper. Find a telephone that you could tap into. There were no cell phones back then, and there weren't even modular phones. When I started, we would take wire with what we called alligator clips and banana plugs. Alligator clips were little two little clips that you would take a phone mouthpiece apart and clip it into the wiring. Sometimes we'd tap straight into the wall wiring, so you had to be a little bit of an electrician, a phone technician. And then you would make a transmission. You had to make a connection to either Washington or New York. That's the points that I would transmit to. And since it was an analog transmission, in other words, the picture actually spun on a drum or went down through a machine where a laser beam read it, it was an analog process, which means it took about a minute per inch to transmit the picture. So if you had an 8x10 picture, 8x10 inch piece of paper, it took 10 minutes to transmit it. Now for color, you had 3 separations to do, a cyan, a magenta, and a yellow. So it took 3 times, but it took you 30 minutes to send one color picture. Now on a high speed, even if it's a cell phone line, it takes 2-3 seconds.
Wow.
So it's a huge difference. When we did film, and you went to a big job, like let's just say a basketball tournament, NCAA tournament, something like that. Probably could be easily up to 75% of your effort and your time went into logistics. And that means packing equipment, mixing chemistry, finding power, finding phone lines, setting up a dark room. Each day, each morning, before you could start, you had to mix new chemistry. When you were done, you had to dump everything, you had to clean up, you had to repack, all of that, which left you, relatively speaking, a small amount of time to actually shoot pictures. Now it's just the opposite. You walk in with your cameras, you got a laptop over your shoulder, in your laptop bag, you shoot an assignment. If I was shooting a picture right here, I could simply pop out my laptop, hook up a card reader to it and my cell phone connection, and within 5 minutes have pictures transmitted around the world from that same event that I just shot, no matter where. You don't have to leave. Dark rooms are a thing of the past, and so where in the past you had to be good at shooting pictures, but you also had to be good at printing pictures and working in the dark room. And now you've got to be good at shooting pictures, and you've got to be good at the programs that you use on your computer to get those out.
Do you think with the easiness now of digital photography that it's a little easier for people to edit it and make it look, as far as integrity goes, just change the whole subject, and maybe there's not as much skill you need with film?
No. I think it's just the way it used to be. People can mess up pictures with a digital camera just as easy as you can mess them up on film. In the past, you had to be good in the darkroom to not to change anything in your picture, but to make it look the way you want the good quality of your photograph to appear. I mean, you want to have the proper contrast. You want to have the viewer's eye go to the important part of the picture. You've got to crop within the camera while you're shooting, then you've got to crop in the darkroom. The same holds true now with digital. Really the main difference is that you get to see the results right away on the back of the camera, where before you had to trust that what you were doing was putting the image properly on the film, and you didn't know until you pulled it out of the processor, out of the developing tank. And then you had to be good in the darkroom to make that picture work. Now you've got to be good on the laptop. You've got to master Photoshop. We use Photoshop and we use Photomechanic as our editing and transmitting software. But no, people can turn out really terrible results with digital cameras and laptops, just like they could before with film. and darkrooms. As far as, I don't know if you were getting to the idea of can pictures be changed electronically. I mean, that's always been an issue. Pictures could be changed when you were shooting film, when you were shooting 4x5 sheet film before you got to 35 millimeter, long before my time. Pictures could be altered by airbrushing and doing all sorts of different things. So from an ethical standpoint, it's just the same as it always been. The Associated Press has one rule of thumb when it comes to ethics in how our pictures are handled, and that is you do not ever, under any circumstances, change anything within the photograph that wasn't there when you shot it. You don't add things, you don't delete things, you don't move things around, you simply don't do that. The only thing we do with the picture, we crop and tone so that to bring it back to the way it was that you saw it when you shot it. Because the cameras don't record things the way the human eye and the human brain see light and see the range of colors and the range of light that you see, that a camera sees. It never has. Film doesn't record it exactly the way the human eye and brain record it and see it, and digital cameras don't as well. So yes, there has to be some work done, but you do not change anything in that picture.
From your experience, is there one thing you wish you learned during your education about photojournalism you wish you knew, but, well actually, is there one thing only experience can teach you as far as on the job?
There's a lot of things that experience can teach you. I mean, some of it is photographic. Just like anything else, the more you do it, the better you become. The best way you become a better photographer is to shoot pictures. You keep shooting, you keep shooting, you keep shooting, and you keep learning. Like I said, I've been with AP 31 years, been in the business about 35, and I still learn. I watch the way other photographers work, and I try and learn from what they do. I try to incorporate maybe some things I see other people have tried, and I say that really is pretty neat, and it works real well. I might try that, but at the same time, I'm trying to come up with new things myself. And as far as anything taught in school that I wish that I had learned, not really. You know, things outside of photography, I wish that, I see that photographers, let's say, who speak a second or a third or a fourth language have capabilities that I don't. They can go different places and they are at home and they can get things done that I can't because I don't speak the language. And I mean, this is true if you want to go, for instance, even on an AP Associated Press internship, and you want an international internship, well, you have to speak the language of the country you're going to because you are expected to hit the ground running from day one. So really not photographically, no, I can't say there's anything like that, but there's always things I wish I'd learned, wish I'd been interested in at a younger age. And while I had the chance to learn about it in school, in a classroom situation, because once you're out of school, it's up to you to learn it on your own. And it can be done, but it's not as easy.
For the news, what role do you see the photographer as?
Well, the photographer can do things that a writer can't, and a writer can do things that a photographer can't. Unlike a writer, though, a photographer has got to be on the scene, no matter where it is, whether it's in the studio, whether it's out on the street, whether it's in a stadium, whether it's in the Capitol, whereas a reporter can pick up a phone, and if they miss an event, they can call and they can still get quotes about what happened. They can still talk to the person who was there, and it might not, they won't have the detail that they might have had they been there to eyewitness it. But they can still put their story together. If a photographer's not there, he or she does not have the pictures. So the photographer's job is always sort of the bottom line to document and to show people really what happened, what it was like to be at the scene. You can describe a play in a game days later by hearing what happened from someone else. But the only way a photographer is going to be able to show anybody is to be there at the game and actually photograph the play in question. And so the photographer has to be a witness on the site, and that's really it's the best part of this job. You get to go to some incredible places, you get to see some incredible things, you get to meet terrific people. Like you mentioned earlier, a lot of that can be tragedies, but yet you're there, you're an eyewitness, you are the witness for millions, if not billions of people who aren't there to see it, who will look at your photographs then and get a sense of what happened, of what it was like to be there.
Where do you see photojournalism as a whole going in the future?
That's a good question. That's a tough question to answer because it has changed a lot over the last 10 years or so, and not all for the better. Jobs are harder to find. Jobs in journalism, jobs in photojournalism have always been hard to find. They've never been easy. You don't go to a job fair and see newspapers or magazines or wire services lined up trying to interview applicants saying, you know, can you come work for us? It's just the other way around. You're banging on doors, writing letters, making phone calls, sending out resumes, portfolios, saying, can I come work for you? So it's never been easy. It's harder now than ever because of the economy. Staffs are being cut, staffs are being condensed. Newspapers are ceasing daily print publication, going some papers to 2 and 3 times a week, and then their online presence is their main presence, and that means fewer jobs. Travel is cut. It's changed for us at the Associated Press, although the Associated Press has done a very good job of foreseeing what was coming and has switched our product to be very important to all formats, not just print publication, but also online publication, mobile phone friendly, so that our product is important to many markets. But what I do still boils down to the same thing every day. When I go out to photograph and to document events and people and get them into the hands of others who can make use of those pictures, that stays the same. Just how it's done has changed.
You mentioned jobs. For a student who's coming out of college, what advice would you give them to stand out more to make sure they can get the job they want in photojournalism?
First of all, standing out is a key. You really hit the nail on the head because there are a lot of photographers out there. Photographers, I should say maybe people with a camera, are a dime a dozen. Photographers are hard to find. Really good photographers are very hard to find. Really good photographers who can work in any situation, who are easy to work with, who are self-starters, self-motivators, who can write. I do all the captions of every picture I send out that I work on by myself when I'm not on a large job like Super Bowl or the Olympics or a national convention, political convention, whatever, where we have a large team of people. Every day I write my own captions. They've got to be error-free, accurate. You don't want a caption correction going out. Also called a photo kill, when an error has been transmitted out and we have to tell all the subscribers, all the people who might be using that picture, can't use this picture, kill it from your system. You do not want that to happen. That's not a good thing. Just like a reporter has got to be accurate, in names and spellings and facts. Photographers are as well in the pictures they shoot, but also in their captions. Errors in captions and in your fact finding, they will just override how good of a photographer you are. If you make errors like that and you can't be trusted, you don't know how to go out and you don't know how to interview people, you don't know how to get facts straight, you're not accurate in your note-taking, you're not going to make it as a photojournalist.
Is there anything else you want to say about Nashville photojournalism in general?
Nashville has a rich history of photojournalists and photojournalism. When I started with the Associated Press, we had the Tennessean and the Banner. Of course, the Banner has folded since then, but the photographers I've worked with, I don't say against, I say with on assignments during those years, some terrific people, professionally and personally. And Nashville has a long history of good news. I don't mean good news as in happy news. I mean it's been a good news town. A lot of things have gone on in this town and continue to go on in this town, and it's covered by very, very talented photographers. A lot of them are still working, I'm glad to say. But it has a long history of good people doing good work here in Nashville. And I'm not going to name names because there's just too many to name, and I know I will leave people out. But it has a rich heritage. Nashville's always been a good media city, and it's changed like everything else. But we lost the Banner, and we still have good network affiliates here. On the electronic side, good radio reporting. We have a strong public radio presence here. And I'm always glad to see because as long as all of these outlets exist, that's good for the news industry. It's good for journalism. Most of all, it's good for the readership and viewership and listenership in the Middle Tennessee area and beyond. Because electronically, now more than ever in the digital age, what happens in Nashville, just like what happens in any city, is not limited to the city limits and to the readership right around here. And in a heartbeat, it can go nationwide and worldwide. So I think Nashville has always been well represented by the media here, and I don't see that, hopefully, I don't see that changing in the future.
Is there anything else?
The only advice I would really have, the main advice I would have for people who are interested in photojournalism is to shoot, and when you're done, shoot some more. Look at pictures, study work done by photographers, not just in this generation, but in years past, generations past. It's much easier to do that now because of the internet. You can view blogs daily. I have several blogs that I check every morning, just like I check news outlets and the weather. I'm looking at photographers' blogs as well to see what they've been doing and see where they are. Some of them I know, some of them I've never met. But the internet is a great learning tool, and I think photojournalists now have a great advantage over people when I was in school, let's just say that far back, because you can have access to the work currently being done by top photographers in the world. And you should be looking at that and learning from that.